Welcome to the Daily Dose, where we're going to be discussing the good and the bad of the 2-club opening bid. Now, I reckon there's one good use and there's one bad use. So let's talk about the first one, which is where we're 23 or more high card points and we're a balanced hand. Now, this is a good use for the 2-club opening because the opener will then describe their hand as balanced, and we're going to have our system like transfers and Stayman. So that's a really good use. The second use comes in when unbalanced hands actually open with 2 clubs. Now, we get taught different things. The most common is that it's about 19 or more high card points and an unbalanced hand. There's a couple of different criteria which you may or may not have learnt. I think the best one's going to be that it has to be those 19, but it also has to be a hand that can make game just by itself. Even if partner's got 0 points, it's got a good chance of making game all by itself. So it's going to need 10 tricks if you think a major suit will be trumps, or 11 tricks if a minor suit's going to be trumps. Now, when we open with 2 clubs, there's a couple of different systems that are used. A lot of people use 2 diamonds as a waiting bid so that then the opener can start to bid their suits or bid no trumps. Some people use other things such as a point count or a control showing bid. Now, this brings us to some problems that occur. Now, the first one is going to be that we've taken out a whole level of the bidding. There's only 7 levels in the bidding. Once you've opened 2 clubs, one of them's completely gone. After we've opened 2 clubs, our partner then responds with whatever our conventional bid is, and there's more bids gone. It's sort of 1.5 levels before we can actually start to describe our hand. What this means is that we're in a murky auction. We might have to start introducing suits at the 3 or the 4 level. We're going to end up having problems basically describing our fits and also describing our strength, because of course there's a big variance in what can be a game force opening. So that's a bad thing that happens. We've taken up a level in the bidding. We've got one hand sort of describing itself and the other hand sitting there trying to get a suit in or trying to show its points. We end up in a very muddled up sort of situation when we have a 2-club opening bid and trying to establish where our fits potentially are. Now, our system generally isn't that good over 2 clubs. That's a very bad point because of the fact that we're trying to do so much in such little room. We're trying to find a fit, we're trying to establish our points, we're trying to find out if they're good points or bad points. For instance, if you've got a loser in a suit, you need partner to take care of that. That's 4 points you need in an ace. It's not 4 points that you're going to need between queens and jacks. The other thing that might come in place is that as you get more experienced, you'll find that a lot of people like preempting your 2-club bid. Have you ever had an auction where you've opened 2 clubs and the opponents have gotten in there by preempting 3 spades? It's absolutely awful because when it comes around to you as the opener, you're going to have to start bidding your suit at the 4 level. Ugh. So we've got a few flaws when we open 2 clubs with an unbalanced hand. The first one being we've already taken up so much room in the auction. Second one being that our system's not particularly conducive to establishing exactly what our fits are and exactly where our points are. And also we're very, very susceptible to having problems when the opponents preempt. Now, with that in mind, there's a couple of things that come into play. First of all, you have to be very, very careful when you open 2 clubs with 2 suited hands. So this is when, for instance, you have a 5-5 or a 6-5. The problem with it is that you're going to have so much trouble describing your hand without getting too high in the auction. So what I would suggest is you only open 2 clubs with a 2 suited hand if you've actually got the 5 level worth of tricks, so 11 tricks. Basically, you don't need much from partner to be looking at a slam contract. That way you can also cope when there is interference and your opponents do preempt your auction. Now, the other thing I'd look at is even if you do have game in your own hand, consider what will happen at the 1 level. So basically ask yourself, if I open this hand at the 1 level, what's going to happen? Will this auction actually get passed out? Now, a lot of the time, for instance, if you've got your bare 19 points, either partner's going to respond or our opponents are going to be able to overcall. Especially if you have a minor. They've got 1 spade and 1 heart to be able to overcall. Somebody's going to get in on the bidding. As you start to get more high card points, this changes a little bit because it's not as likely that somebody will have an overcall or that partner could respond. If, for instance, you had hearts and a void spade, one spade's available as an overcall, so that's going to be something that might happen. But if you had spades, don't forget that if somebody wants to overcall, they're going to have to do it at the 2 level. So a lot of the time it's going to be better to actually open at the 1 level if you think it won't get passed out. Now the reason for this is you're going to get so much more information and feel about the hand. For instance, if your opponent's overcall, you're going to start to find out where the other points are. If your partner can respond, straight away you're going to know that they've got some points, and you're going to be able to find forcing bids after they respond. So basically, unless you think that the auction might actually get passed out at the 1 level, most of the time it's going to be best to open at the 1 level, even if you've just got your 19 points and unbalanced, to get a bit of a feel for the auction. 2 club openings, great if you've got a balanced hand. But if you've got an unbalanced hand, do be very, very careful. First of all, make sure you've got that game in your own hand. You need to be able to take 10 tricks if you have a major suit, or 11 tricks if you've got a minor suit yourself. Now, remember, you can get preempted, so make sure you're willing to introduce that suit at sort of the 4 level. For instance, if you only had a 5-card suit, you're not really able to do that, are you? So you might want to consider opening at the 1 level. And also, if you don't think the auction's going to get passed out at the 1 level, you might as well open it just at 1, because you're going to get a lot more feel for the rest of the hands and be able to take the bidding from there. So overall, 2 clubs, good if you've got a balanced hand, horrible if you've got an unbalanced hand. See you tomorrow.